Dear students, welcome to the economics class. We were studying about poverty as a challenge. Okay, we were studying about poverty as a challenge. So we can go through the details again. Okay, we will understand more information on this topic. Categorizing poverty, we can check. There are many ways to categorize poverty. In one such a way, people who are always poor and those who are usually poor but who may sometimes have a little more money. Example, casual workers are grouped together as the chronic poor. You know that we talk about, when we think about poverty, actually there are some, we cannot say that actually these are the people we should call them poor, okay, because you know that even casual workers, some people are having some work, they have enough money and they have money, but the basic things they do not have, but we count them also in a in poverty line or in as a poor, we consider them. Okay, categorizing poverty. There are many ways to categorize poverty. In one such way, people who are always poor and those who are usually poor but many sometimes have a little more money. Some people are always poor and some are having some money, then some are very poor. So we can say various levels, we can see actually various sectors of poor people actually. Okay, so the various sections are there, are grouped. So there are also some chronic poor. Chronic poor means very poor, chronic poor. Some are having some job but they don't have enough money. So we consider them all these people as poor people. Another group are the churning poor who regularly move in and out of poverty, example small farmers and seasonal workers, and the occasionally poor who are rich most of the time but many sometimes have a patch of bad luck. So various sections are there in poverty actually. Some are poor, some are very poor, some are actually having some work. Even we consider some farmers and seasonal workers who are also in poor people's category. Okay, so different categories are there that you need to understand. Some people have patch of bad luck. They also many times they have, sometimes they have actually money but many times they have bad luck. So we call them also in we count them also in poor people's category, that you need to understand. They are called the transient poor. Some people are actually most of the time but many sometimes have a patch of bad luck actually. Okay, they are also are called the transient poor. And then there are those who are never poor and they are the non-poor. So non-poor people means they are not poor. Okay, so different categories are there. So what did we understand from this paragraph? We are actually categorizing the poverty, means actually there are many categories when we talk about poor people. Okay, poverty is in various levels. That is what actually we are discussing here. There are many ways to categorize poverty. In one such way, people who are always poor, some people are always poor, and those who are usually poor, okay, they are usually poor but who may sometimes have a little more money. Some people they have little more money. They all come in this poor people's category. Okay, another group are the churning poor who regularly move in and out of poverty. They are known as the churning poor. Okay, so sometimes they have okay but sometimes their life is not okay. So they are also suffering for managing their day-to-day lives. Okay, so all these people come in this category. And the occasionally poor who are rich most of the time but many times they are occasionally poor. Some people are occasionally poor, okay, sometimes poor, okay, who are rich most of the time. They are actually rich most of the time but may sometimes have a patch of bad luck. They are called the transient poor. And then there are those who are never poor. Never poor means they don't have any financial problems. So, okay, So many people are there actually, the categories are there when we study the poverty in our country. So we cannot say particularly only this section or this category is poor. Various categories are there, various types of categories are there, okay. That we will go and understand more about this. The poverty line. What is poverty line? Okay, so we have already studied about actually Dadabhai Naoroji. He designed a poverty line. Okay, now let us examine how to determine the poverty line. There are many ways of measuring poverty. There are many ways we can measure poverty. We can calculate or we can understand poverty in many ways. One way is to determine it by the monetary value. That is the best way. So one way is to determine it by the monetary value or per capita expenditure. So monetary value of the minimum calorie intake that was estimated at 2,400 calories for a rural person and 2,100 calories for a person in the urban area. So there are rural area and urban area, their intake of foods and its calories, okay. So the calories actually, what the intake of calories actually measured or estimated that 2,400 for rural area and 2,100 calories for a person in the urban area, okay. That is what actually they are talking. So you know that at least one person must have 3 times food in a day, okay. That is what we wanted to understand. 1 time food, 2 time food or 3 time food, okay. At least there are many people living under poverty line. Even many people, they don't have 1 time meal. That is also happening in India. More poor people are living in India, that we cannot ignore or neglect. We cannot ignore. So based on this poverty line, based on this in 2011 to 12, the poverty line was defined for rural areas as consumption worth as 816 for rural area. This is for rural area. Rural area means the villages, etc. Okay, not the urban area. Urban area means the cities, towns, etc. So as for a person, actually rural areas as consumption worth 816 per person a month, and for urban areas it was Rs how much rupees? 1,000. Okay, you know that actually this calculation within this amount one person cannot live 1 month actually. Okay, they cannot have enough food. Okay, now we know actually. Then also our government decided set this rate and calories for measuring the poverty in our country. Okay, that we needed to understand. Then, though the government uses monthly per capita expenditure, MPCE, that is the abbreviation, the full form of this MPCE is actually monthly per capita expenditure. Okay, expenditure, that is what, as proxy for income of households to identify the poor. That is the authority, we can say, okay. That is the authority to understand that is the way we understand or measure the poverty. Do you think this mechanism satisfactorily identifies the poor households in our country? Do you think this is the way we can identify the exactly poor people? No, we cannot actually. There are some variations actually. Okay, so there are poor people are living in various categories. That is what actually this chapter says. We wanted to understand all those things actually. Okay, what to eradicate? In order to eradicate poverty, what we needed to create more employment opportunities in our country. More development, industrial development we needed to do in our country. More job opportunities our government needed to create in our country. Okay, we can move on to the next point. So, economists state that a major problem within this mechanism is that it groups all the poor together and does not differentiate between the very poor and the other poor. Okay. So, what is the drawbacks of identifying poverty in our country? The mechanism, the present mechanism which we follow got some drawbacks. Okay. So, that we can check as the drawbacks is there, some drawbacks is there. Economists say that a major problem with this mechanism is that it groups all the poor together. It groups all the poor together. Actually, there are different categories, different problems, actually different sections of people are facing. Even the poor people have different troubles, problems, and they are in different categories. Okay. But considering them, all of them in one category is not good. Okay. It is actually the present mechanism does not differentiate between the very poor and the other poor. So, we have already studied that, actually there are different types of poor people are in our country, and different poor people are in different categories, that we have already studied. So, very poor are there, chronic poor are there, so churning poor are there, so many categories are there. Also, this mechanism takes into account expenditure on food and a few select items as a proxy for income. Economists question its basis. Okay. There is no, we cannot say that, so this method is the authority of measuring poverty. So, there is nothing like that actually, but government's present mechanism, what mechanism they are following in order to study the poverty is actually not working properly. That is what actually the economist questions. Okay. This mechanism is helpful in identifying the poor as a group to be taken care of by the government, but it would be difficult to identify who among the poor need help the most. Yes, of course, the present mechanism, the present poverty measurement is actually good in certain areas. We can add certain areas, so that we can identify the poor as a group to be taken care by the government. So that actually the government can only understand who are the people to be cared, to be given more care actually, that is the government, but it would be difficult to identify who among the poor need help the most. So, there are also in poor people there are different categories. So, some are actually very much in need of much care. Okay. So, that we wanted to differentiate and we wanted to identify. The needy people we wanted to identify at first and to give more care to them. Okay. That is what actually. So, we have here in this paragraph, we studied that actually there are some problem with the measurement of poverty in our country. So, we needed to do the proper measurement programs in our country. Then we needed to identify the very much needy people who wants more care and consideration from the government, that we have already understood. Okay. The government must take care of them. That is what actually. There are many factors other than income and assets. It is not only the income and assets which are associated with the poverty. For instance, the accessibility to basic education, health care, drinking water and sanitation. So, the basic amenities the government needed to provide, the people must have. Some people they are poor, Sometimes what is happening, many people they are not getting proper education, better education, they are not getting proper health care, and also drinking water, the proper drinking water is not
available, and the basic amenities, even some people are not having toilets, good house, okay, good health facilities, good infrastructure system, etc. they are not giving, they are not having, okay. So they need to be considered to develop poverty line. The existing mechanism for determining the poverty line also does not take into consideration social factors that trigger and perpetuate poverty, such as illiteracy, ill health, lack of access to the resources, discrimination or lack of civil and political freedoms. So we can generally, generally we can say all these we need to consider when we measure poverty. Okay, what are the main things we wanted to calculate when or measure when we identify the poverty? What are the things? So illiteracy, there are many people in our country still they are illiterate. The proper, better, the basic education or formal education they don't have. So the ill health is there always. Of course, the poor people are generally having so many physical illness or diseases. We want to take care of their health. Malnutrition is there. Due to that also they are having ill health or many various kinds of diseases. Lack of access to resources in villages mainly. There is a lack of resources, availability of lack of resources. They are not getting the proper resources and resources usages, lack of civil and political freedoms. Yeah, of course, in certain areas of our country is facing this problem. Okay, even socially, politically, financially or economically, various kinds of stigma is actually prevailing in our society. Various problems, issues are there and our people are facing. Okay, we can consider them. They all are actually poor people. Okay, we want to get highly educated, talent, skilled, professional, healthy people in our country. Then only we can say we got much development or we eradicated poverty from our country. So you need to take care of all these points actually. The aim of poverty alleviation schemes should be to improve human lives by expanding the range of things that a person could be and could do, such as to be healthy and well nourished, to be knowledgeable and participate in the life of a community. Yes, of course, this point we were discussing actually. Every citizens must get proper education. We wanted to eradicate poverty from our country. People must get proper meals, okay, the food supplements, then there should not be malnutritious troubles in our country. The citizens must get proper food, nutritious food, then they must have good education, health facilities, better roads, infrastructure development, everything they must get. Okay, then community development, socially, politically as well as economically, they must be elevated. So overall development of our country must face, the citizens must get it actually. The basic needs, of course, not only the dress, house or food, they must also get political, social and economical changes. Overall development must reach up to the rural areas or up to the grassroots. That is what the point. That is what the development. Development means the removing all those obstacles from our countries. So the people must enjoy their life every level. They must have complete resources usages. So illiteracy we wanted to remove. Then we wanted to remove illiteracy means we wanted to educate people. So every person must have formal, at least formal and higher education. Then ill health, lack of access to resources or lack of civil and political freedoms. There are many people living in the villages, they are not having political freedom as well as some leaders are suggesting them, so they are following, they are putting their voting, power. The voting power actually every citizens of India got, especially after 18 years everyone can cast their vote. But still what is happening in the villages, so many people don't know how to cast their vote properly, cast their voting power properly. So what they follow others suggestions, other politicians suggestions. So we want to get freedom from all those stigmas, all those social issues. We wanted to get freedom from all those social issues. We want highly educated, talented, knowledgeable persons in our country. So we can move on to the next point. Though the government claims that a higher rate of growth, increase in agricultural production, providing employment in rural areas and economic reform packages introduced in 1990s have resulted in a decline poverty levels. So our government is claiming that after 1990s, our government introduced actually new economic policy in 1991. So the government is saying that actually after 1990s, the India got much development in every level. So in the field of agriculture and in the field of production, that means the industrialization, lot of changes occurred or happened in our economy. So we could do much in the field of agriculture, and so the poverty level is also changed. The considerable changes occurred in the poverty. So that is what our government is claiming. But what is happening? But the economists raise doubts about the government's claim. They point out that the way the data are collected, items that are included in the consumption basket, methodology followed to estimate the poverty line and the number of poor are manipulated to arrive at the reduced figure of the number of poor in India. So the economists are saying that still the poor people are majority in our country. They are saying more people are under poverty line or poor people. Poor people are there in our country. That is what actually they are telling that actually. So the majority of India's people are poor. So we have already studied that poor means actually the extreme poor people are there, very poor people are there, poor are there, then so many different categories are there. Already we have studied that. So the poverty is existing, still the poverty is existing. Our country is not a developed country. Of course we know that actually still there are many villages, they are not having basic amenities. Many people are not getting proper food. Malnutritious troubles are there, ill health is there. Many people have various kinds of diseases, then many villages don't have proper infrastructure development. So economists are telling that we cannot claim that India transformed totally, India got much development until now. So they are telling that we needed to do lot of changes, the government needed to work on this again and again. So they are telling the government's claim that poverty alleviation almost attained the satisfactory level. That is not really happened. They are telling that that is not acceptable what the government says. The economist says that still the poverty is there, and the government's measurement and its methodology to measure the poverty is not a satisfactory one. That is not a satisfactory one. The methodology they followed, the study of poverty is not actually giving satisfaction. The government needed to do more work. The infrastructure development, then the education, formal education, health facilities, road transport system, technological availability, technological and science availability, science education we needed to promote in India. So, the people need to get more changes in their lives. That is what it will happen only when the government creates such a strategies properly, then only it will happen. Okay? So, the government is doing work. So, of course, there are a lot of changes in our country. We can also see that a lot of changes, more employment opportunities our government is creating. Okay? So, the next point we can check. Due to various limitations in the official estimation of poverty, scholars have attempted to find alternative methods. For instance, Amartya Sen, noted Nobel laureate, has developed an index known as the Sen index. You know that Amartya Sen got Nobel Prize in economics. Okay? So, he also studied about this poverty and he made a Sen index which can measure the poverty. Okay? So, all these topics actually we will study in our higher class, you will study in your higher class, but what we studied until now is that actually the poverty is still existing in our country, though our government claimed that poverty alleviation or eradication of poverty happened in India. Yes, of course, the poverty is there, but you know that actually, so still the many are under poverty line, okay, under poverty line in our country. So, through the supply chains, the government is supplying food to them, rice, wheat, all those kerosene, sugar, everything actually for nominal price the government is providing. So, of course, there are a lot of changes in our country. Poverty line, poor people are actually there, but a lot of changes there. So, the percentage of poor people is actually decreasing in our country, but of course, the poverty, we can say poor people are still there, because you know different categories of poor people are there, but that is not meaning the government is not doing good. Of course, the government is doing good, the basic needs our government is providing. Okay? So, again our economists are telling that economists says that we need to give better education, more better education, then poverty eradication will happen only when we provide more employment opportunities. For that actually the government needed to work very hard and they needed to create a lot of proper strategies. Dear students, welcome to the economics class. Yes, dear students, we were studying about the poverty as a challenge. There are many poor people live in our country. Okay? We have collected more information on this topic. Again, we wanted to know more about this subject, the number of poor in India. Okay, we wanted to know how many poor people live in our country. Okay, so when the number of poor is estimated as the proportion of people below the poverty line, it is known as head count ratio. You might be interested in knowing the total number of poor persons residing in India. Yes, of course, we are all very much excited to know. We wanted to know the exact truth actually, the truth we wanted to know how many people are living under poverty line. Of course, there are many people living under poverty line in India. Okay, so this is actually the head count ratio we want to know, the head count ratio, the exact ratio, how many people are exactly living under this poverty line and how many are above the poverty line. Okay, so that we wanted to know. So, where do they reside and has their number or proportion declined over the years or not? We want to know where they live and their number increased or decreased, all those information we want. When such a comparative analysis of poor people is made in terms of ratios and percentages, we will have an idea of different levels of poverty of people and their distribution between states and over time. Yes, when we come to know the exact ratio of poor people, then we will understand how many people, how many poor people are living in different states in India and their ratio also. Okay, the exact number we will come to know. Yes, of course, we wanted to know that actually about, people consider that India is a poor country and more poor people are living in this country. But over these years actually what are the changes our government could bring, and we also wanted to know the economy could change the poverty line or not. Okay. So, we can move on to the next step, then we will next page and we will understand more about it. Okay. So, here the official data on poverty is now made available to the public by the Niti Aayog. This Niti Aayog is a new name, before it was known as Planning Commission, you know that actually. Okay. So, Prime Minister is the chairman of this Niti Aayog. They are actually planning India's developmental program strategies. Okay, like 5-year plans and some other plans. So, the overall development of this country would be managed by this Niti Aayog. It is estimated on the basis of consumption expenditure data collected by the National Sample Survey Organization. The abbreviation of this National Sample Survey Organization is NSSO. Okay, its full form is National Sample Survey Organization. You must remember that. So, okay, now called as a National Statistical Office. There is a National Sample Survey. National Sample Survey Organization is also known as, now it is called as National Statistical Office. Okay. So, that is what in 1973 to 2012, in 1973 to 74, more than 320 million. 320 million, when I say 320 million, 1 million means 10 lakh people. So, what happened? 320 million people were below the poverty line. Actually, 320 million people were living under poverty line. In 2011 to 12, this number has come down to about 270 million. It's decreasing. That is actually very good. Okay, in terms of proportion, in 73 to 74, there is considerable changes we can see. About 55% of the total population was below the poverty line. Okay, but actually that now it is changing. Now it is changing. Before it was around more than 50% people. 50% people were under poverty line. Now it is changing. It is actually in 2011 to 12, the study is saying 22% people were living. It has fallen to 22%. In 1973 and 74, more than 80% of the poor people resided in rural areas, and this situation has not changed even 2011 to 2012. There is no much changes. More poor people are still living in villages, okay, in rural areas. Before also it was like that. Of course, the poverty percentage reduced. Before it was actually more 55%, but now it is only 22%. Now, of course, the number has gone down again. This means that more than 3/4 of the poor in India still reside in villages. Why do you think this is the case? Why do you think? Why poverty eradication is not happening? Why? Do you think more poor people are living in the villages? That is why still the poverty is existing in our country. In urban areas, in the cities, if they move, it is possible that they can find job. Yes, more job opportunities are in the cities when we compare to the villages. Okay, in villages, of course, there are no more job opportunities or more employment opportunities. Okay, there only mainly more people are dependent on agriculture. Okay. So, we will study more about this actually. In this page what did we understand? We understood that actually the Niti Aayog is there. Niti Aayog is also collecting more data on this poverty. Also that actually from 73, 74 in those areas also India experienced the poverty. The poverty level, the percentage of poverty is changing, but still the more poor people are in the villages. Still all are staying there, around 50% of poverty percentage, and its majority is still in the villages. Okay, but of course the poverty percentage in India, when we take it, reduced to 22% only. Okay, that only. So here why we say more poor people are living in the villages? Of course they are not moving anywhere, they don't have job opportunity, there is no employment opportunity more there. Okay, that is why villages experience more poverty. Okay, so we can move on to the another page. In the 1990s, the absolute number of poor in rural areas had declined, whereas the number of their urban counterparts increased marginally. So in 1990s, what happened? You know that actually the poor people in the village, their percentage actually declined, means decreased. Okay, whereas the number of their urban counterparts, the people who are the poor people who are living in the cities, and their number increased marginally. So then the poverty ratio declined continuously for both urban and rural areas. So overall what we can say, the poverty ratio decreased overall. When we say that actually in those days in 1990s, overall the poverty ratio decreased in our country. Okay, you will notice that during 1973 to 2012 there has been a decline in the number of poor and their proportion, but the nature of decline in the two parameters is not encouraging. What happened actually when we compare or when we do the appraisal, then we will come to know, when we do the close study or reconnaissance, then we will understand that actually there has been a decline in the number of poor and their proportion, but the number of decline in the two parameters is not encouraging. Still the poverty is there. The ratio is declining much slower than the absolute number of poor in the country. Okay, the ratio is declining, but still the poor people are in our country. We wanted to bring the clear real strategies, then only the proper plan we wanted to implement, then only we can eradicate the poverty completely. Okay, so that is one. You will also notice that the gap between the absolute number of poor in rural and urban areas got reduced, whereas in the case of Russia, the gap has remained the same until 93 to 94 and has widened in 2011 to 12. Okay, so there is actually poor people are still existing in the villages, living more people in the villages are actually poor people. More poor people are in the villages because there is no proper job opportunities, no proper education, so many things are connected with their poverty. Okay, the same way the poor people are living in the cities as well. Okay, so the ratio reduced, but more people, poor people are still in India, even in the urban areas as well as in the rural areas. We will also study more about this topic again. So the state level trends in poverty are shown in chart 4.4. You can see in your textbook there is a chart 4.4. Okay, the poverty, the chapter name is poverty. There you can see a chart 4.4. There what you see, there the state level trends in poverty are shown. There are many states in India. Okay, so you can check how many states are in India. 28 states are actually, today I checked, then Google says that 28 states in India. You can also check. Okay, there are some union territories as well in India, as well as in India. The two lines in the chart indicate the national poverty level. In that chart, actually in your textbook you can see a chart 4.4. in there you will find two lines in the chart, okay, that indicate the national poverty level. The first line from below, the first line from the below indicates poverty level during 2011 to 2012, and the other line indicates the same for the year 73 to 74. So two lines are there. One line is indicating 11 to 12 and the other one is indicating 73 to 74. This means the proportion of poor in India during 73 to 2012 has come down from 55% to 22%. See, lot of changes there. Why these changes occurred? Because of our strategy planning. The Indian government did proper planning. So we emphasized, we gave more attention on agriculture. Okay, we were concentrating more on agriculture. The food production improved. Okay, now we have surplus of production, lot of production, more production. We are also implemented more strategies in order to create more food production in our country. Now modern technologies we are utilizing in the agriculture. Also we high yield variety of seeds we distributed, the government distributed, fertilizers we have introduced in the agriculture. Also irrigation projects, all those actually brought this success. Okay, so once it was 55% during the period of 1973, 55% of people were living under poverty line. Now it considerable changes you can see. Now it is around 22% only. The chart also reveals that 6 states, mainly see the 6 states in India, Tamil Nadu, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, West Bengal and Orissa contain a large section of poor people in 1973 to 74. During 73 to 2012, mainly Indian states reduced the poverty levels to a considerable extent. Lot of changes you can see. So lot of changes you can see. Okay, so all these states were actually experiencing more poverty: Tamil Nadu, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, West Bengal and Orissa. Okay, 73 to 74, you know that more poor people lived in those states. Okay, now what is happening? So from 73 to when we come to 2012, we can see that many Indian states reduced the poverty levels to a considerable extent. So what do you understand about this actually? What did you understand from this page actually? You know the poverty is there still in India, of course, but the percentage we reduced, but it was 50 years ago or 70 years ago, it was very extreme. More people experienced famine. Then you know that one time meals even many people didn't get, but nowadays the things changed totally. Our government is concentrating much on the food production. Also nowadays we can say very proudly, we can say now India is also exporting food grains to other countries. But now also we have some poor people. So why still poverty exists in India, that we need to understand, study. We will come to know more on this topic again. So many states which were actually facing extreme poverty, Tamil Nadu, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, West Bengal and Orissa got much changes. Now in this 2022 you will see lot of changes. Okay, poverty eradication already we are going to attain. Okay, very less percentage of people are suffering due to this poverty nowadays. The government is doing best through its supply chains are there in every states. Through the supply chains, you know, ration shops are available, some other supply chains also you can see in many states. Okay, through all those shops actually the government wants to eradicate poverty. Okay, more job opportunity our government is creating all over India. More productivity our government is increasing, therefore more industrialization is happening. Privatization our government introduced in 1991 onwards, then globalization as well as the privatization, globalization and liberalization also introduced. All these actually brought the changes in our poverty level. Okay, so the poverty level means India is having very less percentage of people now under poverty line. Before it was very huge. Okay, now we can move on to the next point. We can check the next point. Yet the poverty levels in 4 states, Odisha, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, are still far above the national poverty level. See, lot of changes you can see in all these states, Odisha, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, or they are all done commendable or praiseworthy steps. Okay, their action, okay, they are actually eradicating poverty. Okay, that is actually we must appreciate their efforts. You may notice Andhra Pradesh, Rajasthan, West Bengal and Tamil Nadu reduced poverty level much better than other states. Okay, all other states, when we compare the mentioned states like Andhra Pradesh, Rajasthan, West Bengal and Tamil Nadu with Orissa, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, then you can see all these below mentioned states like Andhra Pradesh is doing much good, Rajasthan, West Bengal and Tamil Nadu done commendable or praiseworthy efforts to eradicate poverty. Okay, we cannot say that actually Orissa, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar and Uttar Pradesh is not doing good. Yes, of course they are also doing good, but the number of people living in those states are, you know, more there, more population is there when we compare with some other states like Tamil Nadu. We cannot compare Tamil Nadu with Uttar Pradesh, because you know that around 20 crores of people are living in Uttar Pradesh, I think. Okay, so but in Tamil Nadu only 8 crores of people. So that also we need to consider. Of course, that is why the poverty is still existing in many states in India. But of course, India government and the state governments jointly, they are trying to eradicate, complete eradication of poverty. We wanted to remove the poverty from India. That is why Garibi Hadao Abhiyan, they have done all those missions. Okay. So then we can move on to the next point. What causes poverty? Poverty is still there. Of course, there are many parameters. So we wanted to know what is poverty. Okay, that categories, different categories are still existing in our country. So we cannot say some people they are poor and they are not poor when we compare with other people. Yes, poverty is always in the society. When we categorize, there are different categories still existing in our country that we have already studied in our previous class. Okay, now come to the point, the poverty causes. The causes of poverty lie in the institutional and the social factors that mark the life of the poor. Once more, the causes of poverty lie in the institutional and social factors that mark the life of the poor. The poor are deprived of quality education and unable to acquire skills which fetch better incomes. Of course, you see social, political, financial, so many factors are affecting poverty. So more poor people, you know that actually they don't have quality education, they are not getting quality based education. That is one of the basic reason why they are still experiencing the poverty. So they are also not acquiring skills. Skills means what? Actually skill development, then only they can find job and they can earn something for their livelihood. But that is not happening. They are not fetching better incomes, they are not able to bring income in their life. Actually day to day life they wanted to, life they wanted to run. How it is possible? It is possible only day to day livelihood or life they wanted to run. The family need food, their children need education. That will happen only when they create or they fetch better income to their family. If they are capable to bring money from the job, many people in the villages, rural areas are not having proper income or proper job opportunities. The main victims of caste, religious and other discriminatory practices are poor. Still you can see in our Indian societies, still the caste system is there, religious problem, discriminatory practices. Okay, so there are many communities are not allowing their ladies to work, ladies to study. So better education they are not getting. So many problems are there. Women empowerment they are not doing. So many issues are still we are experiencing in Indian societies. All these are affecting the poverty actually, we can say. Okay. So, this can be caused as a result social, economic and political inequality. So, what is actually we wanted to give high standard education we wanted to provide better education opportunities we wanted to create in our country, women empowerment we wanted to do, then girls education we wanted to promote, social exclusion, unemployment is there, indebtedness is there, unequal distribution of wealth is there. All those these social stigmas are still prevailing in our society. We wanted to eradicate or remove all those social evils from the society. Okay, everything will happen when we provide better education. So, we wanted to transform them. Transformation and a transition will take place only when we give better education to our people. That you need to remember. Aggregate poverty is just the sum of individual poverty. Poverty is also explained by general economy-wide problems such as low capital formation. When we study about economy, the aggregate of economy, what is actually we wanted to know more about the totality of economy. Okay, the total investment, total supply, everything we want to study. So, the low capital formation, lack of infrastructure is there, lack of demand, pressure of population, lack of social welfare nets. Really, these are the problems we are facing nowadays. So many evils, obstacles, entanglements are there in our society. All those we wanted to remove. Then only our country can get success. Then only our country can eradicate poverty the better way. So, what are the issues we wanted to address? See, low capital formation. Unemployment is there, job opportunities are less. So, we wanted to provide better job opportunity. We wanted to increase more industries in our country. Then infrastructure development, lack of infrastructure is there. So, of course, in the villages nowadays already started some good roads reaching to the villages. Okay, now our government is providing better roads, other transportation system, electricity, power supply, all those is happening nowadays. But actually the people were suffering last many years. The lack of demand is there, pressure of population is a lack of pressure of population means what actually? See, Indian population is proliferating actually. So, more people are there actually increasing. We wanted to control the population. A lack of social welfare nets. So, lack of social welfare nets. We also wanted to increase all those network, the socially we wanted to be empowered, social groups we wanted to more groups formation, better education, better training, job training, business training, everything we wanted to provide. Nowadays actually the government is much looking into all those areas. Even banks are also giving education on agriculture and also in business loans banks are providing. Then in every district and in every taluk level the government, Indian government and the state government jointly or separately they have actually started opened industrial offices. Okay, so in every villages they got actually good commercial banks. All those banks are also participating in the development of our country. They are also contributing. So now we can check the next point. Next point is the chapter 1. You have read about the British rule in India. Of course, now we are going through the book Economic Development. In that book, the chapter 1 was about the British rule in India. India was being ruled by the Britishers, they ruled our country around 200 years. The situation, the economic development, India was totally in a poor situation, the Britishers neglected. The Britishers' ultimate aim was to develop their nation or the welfare of Britain, that we have already studied. They have taken more raw materials from India and took all those went to the Britain, and the finished goods came from Britain to India, and India became their market. Okay, they were selling their finished goods in India. We have already studied. They also didn't do much infrastructural development in our country. So I trust you have gone through the chapter 1 and understood all those topics. Although the final impact of the British rule on Indian living standard is still being debated, there is no doubt that there was a substantial negative impact on the Indian economy and the standard of living of the people. Of course, there are India and its people are facing a lot of problems now also. The issues are there to be answered. We wanted to bring lot of changes in our country. You know that India is the second largest populated country in the world. So we wanted to take care of all these people. Our government wants to take care of their education. The government wanted to give better education. I also wanted to improve the agricultural productivity, then industrialization, infrastructural development, health service, science and technology. In all those fields, actually India government wants to bring changes. So the government could not attain 100% perfection. India is still developing only. India is not attained its perfect culmination or the maximum development India didn't get until now. Yes, we are progressing. India is a progressing nation and is progressing continuously. There was a substantial deindustrialization in India under the British rule. In British rule, what happened? They didn't promote industrialization in India. They were actually forcing Indian people to create more cash products rather than food products also. So that is why Indian society experienced a famine when Britishers ruled our country. That all those things we have already studied. Imports of manufactured cotton cloth from Lancashire in England displaced much local production. What happened actually? This is a place, Lancashire is a place in England. From England, you remember only the word England, and from England actually Britishers forced to import more manufactured cotton or finished cloths. Okay, that's all. So the local production, they hampered the local production such a way. They didn't allow, Britishers didn't allow to work or open more industries in our country, especially the finished goods production. They didn't promote in our country. And India reverted to being an exporter of cotton yarn, not cloth. Then what happened actually? India was actually the exporter of cotton yarn, not the cloth. The finished products they didn't allow. These are the main points we wanted to understand. From England, we imported the Britishers forced us to import more goods because Britishers were ruling us. So they didn't allow us to import more goods from other countries. Okay, so we imported more goods from the Britain alone. Okay, so then what happened? We were exporting the raw materials. That's all. Finished goods we did buy from Britain. So I addressed all these points. You understood. We wanted to move forward. We wanted to jointly. We wanted to work for the welfare of this nation. We wanted to bring maximum development in our country. So we wanted to utilize human resources properly. We all wanted to make our India better.